Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Saturn in Pisces or Saturn in the 12th house. My name is Brandon. I do astrology videos here on YouTube, and this is the final video in a very long series that I've been working on where I do every single planet and every single sign and house. And it is quite a powerful video to end on. Out of all of them, Saturn is the planetary body that I really have a lot of experience with, and I really love talking about Saturn in its own way. And this video is going to be broken up into a couple different parts, so I'm really excited to be talking about all of them. So first and foremost, we're going to be talking about what Saturn means within astrology. Second from that, we're going to be talking about Saturn in Pisces, and then finally Saturn in the 12th house. If you like what this series is about, there's a whole playlist down below now that you can go through every single planet and sign and house that I have done prior to this. So I'm making this series as very much a foundational sort of thing on my channel that people can use to kind of look around and see what I got going on and how I interpret these different things here. And obviously, since you guys know this is YouTube, if you like, comment, share, subscribe, that's going to help me. I don't need to tell you guys that over and over again. You guys get that. And yeah, this is such a fun series, such a fun video. And yeah, and then of course, if you don't even know if you have your Saturn in Pisces or not, there is also a link down below you can use to check out your birth chart to generate it, to have a better idea if that's the case or not. And then also to see what your Saturn is by house as well can be generated by that chart down there. And if you're interested in anything else with me, obviously my social down there, my website's down there, everything's down there, so feel free to check that out if you're interested in that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I need to say about that. Let's just jump right into what Saturn means within astrology. Okay, so Saturn within astrology. Saturn in astrology is a planetary body that a lot of people fear. There's a big idea around Saturn that it is all about long-term struggle, it's all about difficulty, it's all about karma and uphill battles and restrictions. And I'm here to tell you that that is still true. There's still parts of that that's very, very much a part of this conversation. But Saturn also rewards hard work, rewards patience. It is the kind of karmic taskmaster in regards to our physical, tangible lessons here on Earth. So when I think about Saturn as someone who is ruled by it, as a Capricorn rising myself, I think about Saturn being this kind of very hard teacher, very responsible kind of person watching over your shoulder, this kind of the one that will smack your hand, or that will really come down with the gavel, right? When we think about the kind of idea about a gavel being down and hitting down and doing a sentencing, right, in a courtroom, that is very Saturnian. It is very long-term. It is very largely committed to a long term of karma, right? It's you've made this mistake is too large to be ignored, and now we are paying for it in regards to this time, right? Saturn also rules time, so that's why anything that is long-term sentencing is a very much, I don't know, I'm on the whole legal part of it, but long-term sentencing is very Saturnian in nature. And Saturn ultimately, by the sign it rules and the house it rules, will tell you what areas of life you are going to feel very much like an uphill battle. You're going to feel as though Saturn is restricting that ability. It's restricting that the content of that house as well as the sign, and doesn't allow you to really feel the sense of connection and the sense of success relative to whatever that is. And Saturn specifically in certain signs are going to do a lot better than other ones, because Saturn naturally rules Capricorn and Aquarius, so it's going to naturally do well in those signs. And then it is considered to be exalted in the sign of Libra. And so any of the signs opposite of those three are going to be within the dignity spectrum, so meaning that they're going to function in kind of a wide range. So I want to do a much larger video on dignity at some point, but when it comes to Saturn in Capricorn Aquarius, once again, it's at home. So the signs opposite those, which are Cancer and Leo, are where Saturn is not as comfortable, because it's not at home in that regard. It's not comfortable in that way. And then Saturn exalts in Libra, which is where it functions at its highest in a lot of ways, versus it's considered fallen in the sign of Aries, where Saturn does not do well because it is really self-focused in that way. There's a lot of really powerful things about self-focus that are great, but Saturn in Aries like kind of makes it so it feels like it's the individual alone doing all this stuff, and that's why Saturn exalts in Libra for some reason, because of the fact that it's able to allow for us to do collaborative work to then reach our goals, right? So anywho, I say all that to say, just so you know that's what Saturn rules. If you have heavy placements in Capricorn or Aquarius, whether it's your rising sign, whether it's your sun sign, your moon sign, anything of that nature, more so anything prior to the outer planets, so think Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and obviously Saturn, there's going to be a lot of importance there. So if you have any of those planets in Capricorn or Aquarius, so Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Mars in Capricorn, Aquarius, the Saturn placement is going to be important for you. Also with that as well, if you are born during the day, Saturn is going to be considered to be more constructive than more destructive during your Saturn return. I did also do quite a large video with another astrologer pertaining to the Saturn return, so feel free to check that out. I'll put that in the description for you as well to look at. And because Saturn is very much this long-term, heavy, restrictive kind of energy, it really says you're going to work at this for a very long time. And when you typically go through your Saturn return or any major Saturn transit, it really creates a very strong new foundation of responsibility, of what it is that you're building, of what it is that you are really wanting to work towards, what your long-term goals are. So when you think about people that say, what's your 15, 20-year goal? That's very Saturnian. There's a lot of goals towards career and ambition that's related to Saturn as well. And once again, Saturn, it doesn't always restrict. It does do that until we utilize it responsibly, and then we get what we want in that regard. But there's a lot of delays typically for Saturn, no matter where it's at in the chart. Even if Saturn is in its own sign or exalted, it's still going to delay or create barriers, boundaries, walls around whatever it is that it kind of touches. And then, of course, Saturn's aspects are going to have a big conversation within this as well about what Saturn's really trying to kind of restrict or mold or solidify or ground in a very solid way. There's a lot of long-term structure that Saturn is really pertaining to. So that's like most of what I want to say. Obviously, I could talk about Saturn for a very long time as a Saturn rule chart. And like I said, I talked about it a lot with that podcast, so you're welcome to check that out in the description as well. But let's go into what most of you are here for anyway, which is what Saturn does in the sign of Pisces. Okay, so Saturn in the sign of Pisces. So Saturn in the sign of Pisces, this is going to have a very unique way about it, okay? Now, when it comes to Saturn, Saturn and Jupiter are kind of they kind of complement one another in a lot of ways, much like Venus and Mars do. There's a lot of like pairing with Saturn and Jupiter. And when we think about Saturn in a Jupiter-ruled sign, so either in Sagittarius or in Pisces, there's a quality of faith with this. There's a quality of meaning, purpose. Why are we doing this, right? What is the meaning behind all of these things? And when it comes to Saturn and Sag, which is the other, obviously, Jupiter-ruled sign, this is where we think about faith, worldview, religion, things that are codified, things that are written down, things that we know exist. Meaning that religious texts, things that are studied, different cultures, different ways that cultures treat things, the meaning, the laws that govern us, both actual laws themselves, like within our culture, but then also like metaphysical laws and esoteric laws. That's what you'll see with Sagittarius. It kind of rules that sort of area of things, and that sort of way of looking at meaning and purpose and kind of seeing it from what's already established. versus Pisces is not really established. It's not really established meaning in the same way. It is meaning through experience. It's meaning through dreams. It's through losing oneself in a lot of ways. It finds the purpose by going on the journey, on the pilgrimage, but not in the way that it knows that purpose beforehand, like it does in Sag. Like in Sag, it's like, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go study abroad, I'm going to do that thing. Saturn in Pisces is this quality of, well, I don't know what I'm really looking for. I don't really know what I'm trying to connect to. I just have to go on this journey. And it, over time, Saturn Pisces learns to have faith in themselves, in their journey, in their meaning, in some higher power that they can kind of touch in some ways, or that they feel is guiding their life. And so much like Saturn and Sag, you will see with Saturn and Pisces, pretty strong religious and spiritual traumas, or spiritual or religious kind of upbringings that are really restricting. It's interesting because both in Saturn and Sag and Saturn and Pisces, there's this sense of feeling like stressed to live up to an expectation that either God or the religion or just their ideals, like what you idealize your life to be, what you imagine your life to be, like there's a sense of feeling stressed because you feel so divinely connected, but you don't know to what. And that's why it stresses you out, because you feel like you're not doing the right thing and you're not going in the right way and you're not, it's all messy, right? Pisces is very messy. It's not really clean and clear. And Saturn likes things to be clean and clear. It likes things to be solid and understood and make it make sense. It wants to have boundaries. And Pisces dissolves all that. Pisces makes everything nothing. It makes everything have meaning that is so metaphoric and so artistic and so unclear that Saturn's like, what is this? This makes no sense. We can't function in this space. Now, with Saturn in Pisces, it learns how to do that. It learns how to relinquish control to some higher power, to some creative vision, to find its own spiritual responsibility, that its own energetic responsibility. Saturn Pisces, like I said, with all this whole Pisces season, it's all about this idea of connecting to divinity and touching that and knowing that you are always connected to that, and then how to function within that. And the thing with Saturn and Pisces is they really, really want to live in that space. It's almost like they came to Earth and they're like, we don't want to be here. We don't really want to be here at all. Like, we do not want to be doing this work. We don't want to be doing this. But they become, over time, when they figure out what it is that they're supposed to do here, which is what Saturn coincides with. It coincides with our earthly, like, responsibilities. It creates this kind of divinely guided strength over time. Because with Saturn and Pisces, it's almost like nothing makes sense. And as you go through it, the fog begins to lift. And everything begins to make sense as to why you were guided in this way and why you had this spiritual experience or this visitation or this intuitive gift. Saturn and Pisces is a lot about trusting one's intuition, trusting one's ability to have spiritual and energetic and emotional boundaries. Because Saturn in any water sign, if it's Cancer, if it's Scorpio, if it's Pisces, all of what it's about is about having boundaries within water, within emotional landscapes, within places that are inherently interwoven with someone's energy. So with Saturn and Pisces, especially because Pisces is such a even more like boundaryless sign, Scorpio and Cancer both have more boundaries to them and more of a protective nature. Saturn and Pisces doesn't really have that. Pisces in general doesn't really have that. And so Saturn here is like getting lost in everything, right? It's getting lost in overwhelm. It's getting lost in energetic confusion and stuff that is so like unclear and so ungrounded and unreal, but then it's also so divinely guided as well. It's so beautiful, and it's such a power. It really, really is. Saturn in Pisces has such a gift to it of learning to trust the process, learning to have faith in what it is that you are doing and why you are going in that direction. So many Saturn and Pisces individuals I see that will have a fear, because Saturn induces fear, of things that are not there, right? And this can come across in many different ways, right? Pisces is something that's not really there, or it's imagined, right? It's an idea that we feed, and they all exist, right? Pisces is a collective subconscious, a lot of these subconscious fears, right? There's a lot of really collective worries and fears and energetics that Pisces has to deal with. And then Saturn is like, all right, let's go make a business out of this. Let's go work in it. Let's go understand all of where these lines are at. And that's where there's so much of a gift with the Saturn and Pisces. They definitely are. I'm going to give them this as someone who has a Saturn not in Pisces. They can be very messy in business. I have seen that many times, actually, as they don't really know. They get so interwoven into someone or something or some cause, which is not, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they don't know where the business side of it is, and they don't know where to have that kind of responsibility in that way of their energy, right? That's the thing, Saturn in Pisces, it's almost like there's something that you're trying to be responsible for that you can't see. And just like Pisces rules the 12th house as well, it's stuff that those people typically can't see. So there is an aspect with this where Saturn in Pisces has a very strong intuition, but that's because they've slowly been able to see or be able to trust when their energy feels like, ooh, this is not right, or, oh, this is for me, right? They're able to know where that line is and when to cross it and how that feels to cross that line, and if that is a good thing to cross that line or a bad thing to cross that line. And it's a very spiritually unique placement, because they have so much compassion too. Saturn in Pisces is such a compassionate sort of sign, but it's also trying to make it real. So they have really strong imaginations. I find them to be the most creative people, almost over Saturn and Leos. I mean, that makes sense because Saturn and Leo is not really that creative. It really stifles that. Pisces is like connected to art in such a way that is beyond any sign before it. And Saturn here creates so much empathy, so much healing, so much ability to trust a higher power. And if it doesn't trust a higher power, it's going to have to learn to do that. And it's going to have to learn to trust its own like divinity and its own kind of responsibility within that space. Saturn in Pisces is such a, as someone who does not have Saturn in Pisces and has been going through the Saturn in Pisces transit over the last 2.5 years or so, for me, it has been quite interesting in so many different ways to understand and see the Saturn Pisces individuals coming through, and all of the theme of what I see through them is for them to learn how to really trust that even if it doesn't make sense right now and it seems really messy and it seems really unclear, there is a higher power, there's a higher purpose in this that is going to clean it up. And if it is them that have to be that people to do that, and they have to have that boundary, and they have to be the person to put that kind of metaphorical, energetic kind of line in the sand and really say this is where it ends, that is where you'll see Saturn and Pisces individuals can do amazing healing work. They can do so much healing work because they've had to do it on themselves. Because Pisces is such a healer-related energy. So you'll see people in this being in spaces that are energetic healers, psychics, intuitives, but you'll also see them as people that are in mental health spaces or in recovery. Because Pisces is also this kind of sign that gets lost in whatever it can that can connect it to divinity. And sometimes that is video games or substances or alcohol, and it gets stuck in those, and it has that cycle over and over and over again until it learns to change and to see and have it it's kind of coming to Jesus moment, if you will. The whole like trope about like an addict or like someone who's completely homeless and struggling, and then they're like kind of touched by God in some sort of way, that is 100% like a Saturn Pisces story, where they're at their absolute lowest, and then something shifts in them on a belief, on a very felt like tangibly felt in their body or in their experience, and has kind of like an esoteric or spiritual awakening. Dark night of the soul is very much Saturn and Pisces, and then after that they become like, they just have their dream life just becomes front and center, and they are then able to create the life that they've always envisioned. And then those visions that they always had about their life are there. They just had to go through all the confusion and not know where it's coming from, why it's happening, and then there it is, right? And this is very much like psychics, intuitives, and it's almost like they have to learn to trust the long game of how spirit, God, whatever their higher power is that they prescribe to, how it plays, how it works, right? Pisces is such a confusing sign for so many reasons. And it's something that creates a very strong connection to everything. And Saturn wants to say, okay, you're connected to everything, but you're also alone. And you have to be okay being alone and understanding your energy alone and understanding what it is that solitude does for you and why solitude is important for your energetic, spiritual, mental, physical well-being, right? Pisces and Virgo are on that axis of health and service. And so Saturn here wants you to be able to do that, but to do that, you have to do that for yourself first. And that's going to be hard, because Saturn makes things hard. It makes things difficult. It makes things long-lasting. But it does also give you so much of a gift in that area. It gives you so much of a power to say that I've gone through this, I've survived this, I've worked this, I've become this, divinely guided individual, and this is where my life is now. And had I have not gone through that very confusing time, that very unclear time, where I didn't know what the next day held, or I didn't know if I would succumb to an addiction or a vice or an escape. I didn't, like, there's almost a sense of Saturn and Pisces where it's like saying that keep going, have your faith, keep pushing, because there's so much after this that Saturn and Pisces can feel, and it's almost like the after this, quote unquote, feels like it's right around the corner. And once again, that Saturn and Pisces has that ability to kind of touch divinity in small moments. And that's what allows them to put their footing down and put their one step after the other and make that day by day advancement of saying, no, I'm not going to chase divinity in that way anymore, whether it's in substances or abuses, or self-abuse is really what I was getting at, but like really abusing vices and really going into spaces that are unhealthy for them energetically. A lot of people with Saturn and Pisces I've seen that have struggled with addiction and escapist kind of qualities. And I don't want to say that there's not, I don't want to say there's not benefit to that, because there is. And I've talked about this a lot recently in my own personal life with people about the idea that I'm seeing that's kind of relates to Saturn and Pisces as it is currently happening at the time I record this video, where we are all collectively kind of trying to just hold on to something that helps us get through this very confusing time, right? or whether that's, you know, video games, whether that's interior design, whether that's media in some sort of way, movies, substances, right? Even like food, whatever it is, there's a sense of escape and enabling ourselves and finding joy in some way in that, and using that to cope. There's a lot of really interesting cope mechanisms that I think people have become very heavily aware of throughout the Saturn and Pisces era, as everyone is kind of collectively shedding their own sort of mental health, spiritual health, energetic health toxins, right? Pisces is very much about a detoxification process, or like a sense, once again, of something that you can't see. And Saturn is also very cold. It very much restricts that. It very much says, okay, you want to detoxify? It's going to take you a really long time. You're going to have to go through the withdrawal symptoms, right? You're going to have to go through the really, really heavy, shifts, right? And you're going to be fighting something you can't see. And that's part of the Saturn Pisces story, right? I know people that have Saturn and Pisces that they have this fear of divine judgment. They have, and that keeps them going. But they also, I've seen Saturn Pisces that have amazing creativity. And they've had this vision of their life in the way that they've wanted it for years. And that is coming to fruition because they've held on to that vision for so long. Or I've seen other Saturn and Pisces where they have a fear, and they have a fear of mold within their house. And they were fearful of, obviously, having that issue. And it was like, well, what are we fighting? I'm fighting something I can't see, right? And similar to Mars and Pisces as well, there's a sense of fighting something you cannot see. But Saturn here wants you to slowly understand how to play that game, how to work with your energy, how to survive that fight, how to detoxify, how to purify, how to sit in solitude. Saturn in Pisces it's actually not as bad as people think it is, because of the fact that Saturn is considered to have its joy in the 12th house, which I'll talk about in a moment when I get to the 12th house Saturn portion. But it essentially allows for Saturn to really restrict and create solitude in a place that it's most comfortable. So think of hospitals. Think of Saturn and Pisces going through hospitals and helping people through those kind of liminal kind of spaces that rules Pisces. They kind of help navigate people through really difficult kind of shifts energetically. So you'll see a lot of healers, a lot of people that are service providers with Saturn and Pisces, but also a lot of artists. A lot of artists have this because they are so connected to the collective subconscious, and they want to ground that. They want to ground that so badly. But it's so hard, as I've said with every other Pisces video, when you drop a drop of water into an ocean, it becomes the ocean. And with Saturn and Pisces, it's almost wanting to go in and find that exact drop that it put into the ocean and take it out and analyze it. But at that point, it's already a part of something bigger, right? And so Saturn and Pisces, it has that struggle because it wants to be able to find its own stream of water, its own drop of water, its own kind of uniqueness of how it's navigating spirituality, how it's navigating this world, how it's understanding its own energy. It tries to understand that, and it will understand that. But it struggles because if you think about the imagery of pouring, even a cup of water into an ocean or a lake or a pool, and then taking a bucket and trying to get that same water out. Like, think about kind of, let's just say, like, I don't know why the Boston Tea Party is coming to mind, but it's like very Piscean. But think about pouring like tea, like darkened water to some degree, into a pool. Just say like in a pool, right? Or even into a bathtub, right? Let's do another water analogy, because why not? And you pour that in, and you realize that is, not what you want in a bathtub or a pool, right? Obviously, we know that. Unless you're into some really weird stuff, but that's not a story. But point is, pour it in the water, and then you're immediately like, okay, I need to get this out. So then you get like a bucket, or you get that same cup that you accidentally poured the the tea into the bathtub or the tea into the pool, and you're pulling it out, you're pulling it out, you're pulling it out. At this point, the tea's already kind of merged with the rest of the water. You will never get all of the water out of all of the tea, I guess, out of that pool or out of that bathtub, unless you do one thing. The only way to get that out is to literally drain it entirely clean. And that analogy, I hope that makes sense to you, Saturn and Pisces individuals. That analogy is very much how it feels to have Saturn and Pisces, because you bring your energy into something, and it morphs and molds into that thing as well. It merges. And it merges so much so that it can't separate. So that it will always kind of be within that. It will always be within that system until there is a level of detoxification, there's a level of purity, there's a level of let's completely cleanse this, let's empty it out. And that is where you see the real depth of what's going on, right? For example, if you see about a pool, right? Let's just keep going with the water analogies, right? We have a pool, right? And you drain a pool and you realize all the bottom, there's all these things, or there's all this like mold or whatever it is, right? Calcification, which is so interesting because like water calcification is very much like a Saturn Pisces thing. But it needs to be cleaned, right? Pools are routinely cleaned. Bathtubs are routinely cleaned. Showers, all those things are routinely cleaned to purify that energy, purify that space, to keep the energy, like to know what that container is, to know what that area that the water is in, what it actually is at its core, right? And so, and cleaning that and purifying that and making sure it's all, clean and taken care of and maintained or whatever. That's the Saturn and Pisces story. It's almost like there's a quality in this where you have to routinely do either detoxes or cleanses or boundaries or just really just in some way like a fasting. And there's almost a sense of fasting that is also brought into Saturn and Pisces, of really just allowing yourself to starve in a way, or starve yourself of that substance. And that's why you'll see detoxing and or any sort of cleanse or any sort of cleanse, detox, or like fasting, any sort of kind of like any of those things are going to be very Pisces. It's a lot about kind of taking things back to their root of what they were on a spiritual level and what their bigger purpose is. And it's almost like through that process that you'll see through withdrawal symptoms, through, just symptoms in general, which is once again another sixth house thing. You'll see the energetic kind of shift within yourself. And Saturn in Pisces is so powerful in this way because it really wants to show us those subtleties. Pisces is such a subtle sign. It really, really is. And Saturn there wants us to really, really firmly understand the subtleties within our energy, within the energy around us, within the environment, within our bodies, whatever it might be. It's very interesting because speaking on the Saturn Pisces story, as of right now, as a Saturn ruled chart, as I'm recording this, I'm actually currently going through a parasitic cleanse, which is very Saturn Pisces. It's very fitting for that sort of time frame. And being able to just detox from that, to really see what is beyond in my body, what is helping my body, what's affecting my body in that way. So there's a lot of correlations there. Now, Saturn in Pisces also, there's a very deep desire to connect. But once again, it connects in a way that is so compassionate and so open that it's really strange, because Saturn in Pisces has a unique gift where boundaries are important. They are. They're very important for Saturn. Saturn needs those. But Pisces and the whole archetype of the 12th house and Neptune and everything benefits from less boundaries. So, for example, think about someone who you so deeply merged with in a relational level. Someone who you just dove into and you just become one really quickly, right? That's not healthy. First and foremost, that's not. But there's a level of yourself that you're able to see through, for lack of a better word, drowning in that person and merging so deeply, so quickly, in that same way that water merges to everything that it touches. It's also water, obviously, when you put, the whole drop in the ocean type of thing. There's a sense of, there's a gift within that. And I think the lack of boundaries and the openness that Pisces has and the compassion that Pisces has allows for so much healing for those that interact with Saturn and Pisces, because there is a sense with Saturn and Pisces that there is a there's an understanding of the other person and an acceptance of the other person in a way that no other sign can have. Pisces accepts any and all things with that person. That's why you'll see such healers, such therapeutic people have Saturn and Pisces or have Pisces placements, because they are so well adapted to everyone's stuff. Now, do they have problems with boundaries? Absolutely. Energetic boundaries? Absolutely, right? There's a sense of, in the therapy world, there's this idea of transference and countertransference, which essentially means that there's a issue within therapy when you start seeing yourself in your clients, or you start realizing that you are, there's just a sense of like your client relationship between you and that person becomes this really strange, interwoven kind of subconscious healing for both of you. Very, very, very interesting. Transference and countertransference is a very unique thing to Pisces. And there's a gift in that, is what I'm getting at. There's a gift in that for both people. But also not to, it's very weird. And that's why I think Saturn and Pisces struggles with the ethical part of it as well. Because once again, there is this energetic boundary, and it's knowing where that is and when to navigate that, how to navigate that, what that is, what that's not, right? It's very dicey with Saturn and Pisces, because they really care and they really love, and they don't see anything wrong with what they're doing sometimes, because they're divinely guided and they're trusting that divinity to push them towards the right direction. But there's a quality with Saturn and Pisces that needs to understand when to stop, when to put those walls up, and in the same way, take those walls down, right? It needs to know how to trust its intuition of when to open the floodgates, right? And when to erect the dam. And that does not just relate to relationships, that relates to everything in the Saturn and Pisces life. It relates to their career. It relates to their family dynamics. It relates to their communication. It relates to their finances. It relates to, their friend groups, their online spaces, their creativity. There's so much where it's like, when are we connecting, and when am I drowning? When am I losing myself in this? Like, once again, it's the whole water analogy. When you put a drop of water in the ocean, it becomes that. So good luck finding that drop of water once again. It's not easy. And it's about knowing how, it's like going in and out of that. It's like going into a huge pool of energy and then having to then take yourself out of it and say, well, now I'm covered in all this other gunk. How do I clean myself off, right? That's why spiritual hygiene is so important for Pisces placements in general. But Saturn and Pisces, I think, has the biggest lesson around that, and how to consistently make that a routine. And that's why I think a lot of the Saturn and Pisces individuals have gone through sobriety and gone through things of just energetically cleansing them and kind of filtering and draining that pool, like I was kind of talking about. That really helps them in a lot of ways. And so there's a lot here, and I think Saturn's aspects are really going to help you understand this. Saturn's house placement, of course, is really going to help you understand this. If you are Capricorn rising, or if you are an Aquarius rising, or Capricorn sun, any of those things, Aquarius sun, any of those prominent placements in Capricorn Aquarius, you're going to have a lot of importance with this Saturn placement. Obviously, of course, look to your Jupiter sign, because Jupiter does speak to your belief systems and your meaning that you prescribe to things. So there is a lot of stuff there. Most Saturn in Pisces I know either have their Jupiter in Scorpio, Jupiter in Sag, or very rarely Jupiter in Capricorn. There's like a very, very small, I think, like small portion of Saturn in Pisces that have Jupiter in Capricorn. But for the most part, it is the Sag and the Scorpio kind of ones here. And the point is that there's a lot within that I would recommend you look into. And then, of course, there's the Saturn and Scorpio generation prior to that, which I believe is Jupiter Capricorn. Did I say Saturn and Scorpio or Saturn and Pisces? See, I'm already getting all woozy over this. But yeah, Saturn and Pisces in the previous generation, I forgot what they had. But point is, look to your Jupiter sign. That'll get you a better idea of what it is that you're prescribing meaning to, how you prescribe that meaning. Like I said, most of the Saturn and Pisces I know have Jupiter and Sag, which is that square from Jupiter Saturn. So it is like that kind of already kind of struggling with belief, with faith, with meaning. That kind of doubles up on that lesson, but that's its own thing. I think for the most part, Saturn and Pisces just really needs to understand about their faith and their meaning, their purpose, what they're here to do. And that's not easy to just like sit with and live with and allow the world and God and spirit and whatever it is to just kind of shove you into different directions and be like, why is this happening? Where is this going? What's happening? I don't know what this is. Like, and just being drifted away at sea and then having to just sit there and float and then not know why you're floating that way. Why is this happening, right? It's about trusting the process, trusting where it's at, trusting why you're doing this, trusting why it is that you are in this direction, and giving faith to a higher power, and knowing how to navigate the little instances of synchronicities and messages that your intuition and the environments in which you are in give you that confirmation you're in the right path. You're doing the right thing. As a Saturn in Pisces, I want to let you know that. You are on the right path. You are doing the right thing. It's just a matter of time. And trust the process, trust yourself, trust your actions, but also make sure you are allowing yourself to see your own energy, see your own clarity, drain that pool every once in a while, right? That's going to help you. Yeah, and I just really hope this video helped some of you. Obviously, this is my last video in the series, and it has been such a wild ride, to say the least. And there's so much within this that has been so interesting for me. But obviously, still the Saturn 12th house portion to talk about in a moment. But I just want to thank everybody and anyone that's watched any of these videos. It has been such a wild ride for me, and I'm so grateful to be able to have done this. Funny enough, during a Saturn and Pisces transit, right? Well, Saturn is in Pisces in my third specifically, which is about communication and writing and routine around that. So this is definitely part of my Saturn Pisces story, and I'm really grateful to be able to do this. This is a huge foundational thing that I've wanted to do, and I did it, and now here it is, you know? And so please check out that playlist down below if you're interested in anything else. Obviously, the rest of your videos are up there. Everything I've done is up there for this series. So the series is, after this video, is now done. Obviously, there's more stuff for me to do. I love what I do. I love making content. I love being able to teach people, help people with this, and I love helping people feel the connection to divinity that I feel relative to my chart, my experience in that way. And I hope that this just helped heal someone. I love this. I love being able to do this, and I there's so much that I've learned through doing this series, and yeah. So, but anywho, if you're interested in anything else with me, obviously you know where to find me. You Saturn and Pisces individuals, there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, I would love to hear your stories, as well as what your Saturn return has been like. And just trust it's going to be okay. You're going to get through it. I appreciate you all for being here. I really, really do. And obviously, please like, comment, share, subscribe. All those things are going to help me. It's YouTube. You know what that is, right? So yeah. So that's all I got to say on the Saturn and Pisces. Let's move on to the final portion of this series, which is Saturn in the 12th house. Okay, so we have Saturn in the 12th house. So Saturn in the 12th house is quite a unique placement for a few different reasons. One, obviously, it is in the 12th house, so that in and of itself is unique because any planet in the 12th house is going to have a very karmic, very deeply transformative, psychological kind of way about it, right? But more importantly, why Saturn is so unique in the 12th house is because the 12th house is said to be where Saturn has its joy, meaning that Saturn really does kind of vibe with a lot of things the 12th house really does signify, such as solitude, isolation, and just really understanding essentially spiritual hygiene or mental health, and really having sort of an energetic responsibility. And the 12th house really does support a lot of what Saturn speaks to, with jails, hospitals, things of that nature that are unseen and kind of working in those spaces. And so Saturn here is said to be a lot stronger, really no matter what sign it's in. And that could be for good or for bad, right? Typically after the Saturn return, it's a lot better for the individuals because they become like really, really strong in that 12th house matter. But relative to the 12th house, it is stuff we can't see. It's stuff that's hidden from us. It's stuff that we're fighting, unseen kind of energies and not really knowing how to navigate it, right? So the 12th house becomes this very nebulous space, liminal space of something between worlds, if you will. So you'll see a lot of 12th housers have a lot of energetic overwhelm that tends to happen where they're not quite able to discern what it is that they are feeling, sensing, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, physically. That's also a thing with Saturn in the 12th. There could be a fear of a lot of unknown things. That's also, you'll see that with Saturn in Pisces, like a fear of unknown energies, things that don't make any sense, a fear of the other side. So you can see people that are really like adverse to, mediumship or anything that is spiritual or religious, or foreign in nature to them in regards to like energetics, and that being what they're scared of. They're scared of losing their mind to that in some way. And I think there's a lot of, or losing their energy to that. Because once again, the 12th house is a sense of connecting to divinity, connecting to something that is so within all of us. And Saturn here wants us to have the solitude time to be able to differentiate our energy from someone else's. So once again, similar to Saturn in Pisces, except Saturn in the 12th house is going to play differently with what sign it's in, right? In the 12th house, it's going to have a bunch of different ways that it can function in the 12th house. Because Saturn is not always going to be in Pisces in the 12th house, and more than likely it's not. If that is the case, I do also want to let you guys know, go watch the Saturn video pertaining to your Saturn placement first before you learn about the house placement. Because the house placement is all about the area of life that is really affected. And so Saturn in the 12th, in regards to the area of life, the 12th house is almost like this re-idealization area. Once again, it's hospitals, jails, unseen things, meditation centers, foreign lands, foreign trade, these mental health, spiritual health kind of battles in a lot of ways with 12th house. But Saturn here, because every single 12th house placement is right around sunrise, there's a sense of idealization around the 12th house, where if there's a planet there, there's almost a kind of, I don't want to say cosmic pressure, but almost a projected pressure upon them from their environment, from their family, from the circumstances that they're around, to do whatever that planet is in the 12th house. Because that planet is rising at the beginning of the day, and it kind of has this quality of like, oh, it could be everything. There's so much of the day that it has to go through, right? There's so much visibility. But when it comes to Saturn in the 12th, you could see that this is going to be a projection of what you do for your living, what you do for your career, what you're here to do. So all the time, Saturn 12th housers can have a lot of doubt with what they're doing for their work, with what it is that they're doing for career, because they don't know what direction they're going in, because there's a lot of different ideas of what they could be and how they could be, and there's a lot of like really creative ideas and visions of what they want to do and what feels right to them, what pulls their spirit in a way. But ultimately, Saturn 12th housers do really well in hospitals, isolation, prisons, things that are like that. Even in hospice and any sort of care-related field, because the 12th house is ultimately this house of kind of like caring for someone, dissolving into someone. Therapeutic work is really good for 12th housers. But once again, Saturn in the 12th really does create a kind of fear of one's own psyche, a fear of one's own mind. And psyche and psychic are very similar words in where they come from. And they can feel this sense of like really getting thrust into things that are unreal and delusional or feel real. And that's the thing about the 12th house in Pisces. And I should have mentioned this in the Pisces portion, but like the idea of our brain not knowing the difference between imagined reality and real reality is very, very powerful, and can do so much for our brains and so much for our perspective and our perception. Our brain does not know the difference. So Saturn on the 12th can experience a life where they almost are surrounded by stuff that they don't want to identify. They don't want to sit in. They don't want to ground in. So they try and escape. They try and run. They try and escape. They try and not connect because they're overwhelmed by so many different things psychically or energetically that they can't quite contain. They can't quite understand. And so they feel like there's so much suffering, not just in themselves, but in the world, that they're, surrounded by and they're affected by. And much like Saturn and Pisces, they have to learn how to navigate the unseen energies, work in those unseen energies, and understand how to separate yourself from those things. It's very, very powerful, the 12th house. Very powerful. And you'll see a lot of people here with mediumship abilities, a lot of gifts in that area, having careers relative to, once again, hospitals, jails, things like that. Offshore kind of protections in some way. Anything in water and chemicals, you can see that as well, working in chemicals. That's more Saturn and Pisces than anything, but still worth noting. Saturn the 12th can also rule like foreign settlement as well in some ways. Having a business in foreign lands, having a business and doing foreign things, or in translation work, or in isolated kind of spaces behind the scenes as well. You can see a lot of people with Saturn in the 12th doing behind the scenes work, kind of admin work in a lot of ways. Stuff that you don't see, but is a really important part of a project, right? Like behind the scenes project management in a way. Now, Saturn signs are obviously going to play out very differently. So Saturn and certain elements are going to play differently as well. So obviously I've done through every single Saturn sign before this, so you're welcome to check those out. That will give you much more context than anything else. Because I'm only going to go through little tidbits here with Saturn in the signs in the 12th house. But when it comes to Saturn in Aries, so in a Martian ruled sign, so we have Aries and Scorpio. These are both going to have obviously qualities of a lot of self-isolation around understanding one's will, understanding one's physical vitality and what they can accomplish through their efforts. So there's a lot of really strong efforts. Saturn in Scorpio and Saturn in Aries in the 12th both have a very, very, very strong battle with their psyche, battle with their mental health, battle with overcoming stuff. There's very much a psychic attack for both of them, but Saturn and Scorpio has it way more, and about trying to understand how to empower themselves once again to fight like an unseen enemy, right? That's what you'll kind of see with this, with Saturn in Scorpio or in Aries. But it's about working in those spaces. There could be some really interesting culty or government things with Saturn and Scorpio in the 12th. Government secrets in that way, or Saturn and Aries in the 12th can have a lot of family, father secrets specifically in the 12th. Very interesting stuff with the father with that one. Yeah, that's an interesting one with that one. Don't want to go quite too deep into that, but that's what it is. Saturn in Venus ruled signs, so Saturn in Taurus or Libra in the 12th. These are obviously going to have a little bit more peace there, or trying to find peace in chaos, or trying to find peace around them. So there's a lot of them finding their own sense of value, sense of purpose, sense of individuality, in a way that is through relational, or like they need to be able to see their own worth And it's really hard when you are overwhelmed by everyone else's projections and ideas and relational issues and financial issues. And so there could definitely be some hidden financial issues with this one with Saturn and Taurus in the 12th. There's a lot of like really big imposter syndrome and or like financial kind of gain, like deep financial gain from spiritual pursuits and from spiritual businesses. Saturn in the 12th in general has spiritual business written all over it. But in Taurus, in a very grounded sign, very much about that. But it's about knowing their value in that space. Because Saturn and Taurus, a lot of that story is about understanding their value, understanding their worth, understanding what it is that they are here to do, what they use to make, what value they provide to the world. Because it really changes, because the world changes and the needs change in the world. And it's how do I keep up with that, right? And then Saturn in Libra, it's exalted here, so it does do well. But it does have a little bit of a kind of running a hospital in this regard, or running a kind of relational kind of counseling business in that way. There's something in that regard. But it's not terrible. It's just, it's still going to create a lot of power in that because Saturn exalts here. So it almost is going to really thrust you into relational healing. So you could be a really great relational therapist in a lot of ways. So that one I really like. Saturn in a Mercury ruled sign, so Saturn in Gemini or in Virgo in the 12th house. So Saturn in Gemini in the 12th house is a lot of like mental health stuff with both of these, Saturn in Gemini and Virgo, because Saturn in Gemini already has a lot of mental anxiety in and of itself, because it really struggles with its own ability to discern what its story is. And so there can be this really interesting kind of like attachment to like subconscious ideas of what their story could be, what their story should be, as opposed to accepting what their story is in that way. So like meaning like escaping into media, escaping into things that are non-linear to try, or not non-linear, and essentially exist within like someone's creativity, and then be able to say, that's my story, right? That's who I am. That's what it is. Like, that's what I want my life to be, right? And Saturn and Gemini needs to understand its own story, its own word, its own opinion, its own like perspective, because it's really, really important. Like the Saturn Gemini perspective is very important. In the 12th, though, it's hidden from them. There's a lot of mental health suffering that they have to figure out how to navigate, how to communicate about, how to understand, how to talk about in that way. It's very interesting. Saturn in Virgo, of course, this is like a lot of healers, a lot of like working in nursing, like very much nursing written all. Like this is so nursing written all over it, doctors, like even more so. And I say that a lot with the 12th house, but like this is even more so. Saturn and Virgo in the 12th, I'm like, are you a nurse? Because you need to be. Or you need to be doing something in that field, right? Saturn and Virgo in general is just a really like hard worker, but in the 12th, it's working hard in isolated spaces and working hard to heal a lot of people in isolated spaces. So that's why it's just like hospital, jail, prison, right? Stuff like that. But there's a lot more there, I think. I just don't want to go too deep into it. And then Saturn in the moon sign and the sun sign, Saturn in Cancer, Saturn in Leo. Obviously, Saturn does not do well here, but these are both illuminating things. So this is where you'll see a lot of family or childhood protective services that they're working for. So think about people that are working in a family business that's offshore, or a family business within healing, or a childhood related business, childhood teaching, childhood foreign teaching as well could be a quality here with Saturn and Leo in the 12th. Sense of like teaching in another country, teaching children in another country, something about like protecting families in another country. Saturn in Cancer has that too. Saturn in Cancer has almost the philanthropic, I'm going to go to a third world country and build a school. There's a quality there. There's some interesting stuff with really interesting stuff with ancestry for Saturn and Cancer in the 12th. Saturn and Leo has the same thing, but it's a little bit more unique to the individual, meaning that it's not so rooted so deeply into the family unit like Saturn and Cancer is. Saturn and Leo has that same quality, but it's about them figuring out who they are in that way. Which once again, Saturn in the 12th does help for this because it's a house of its joy, so it does help. And then Saturn and Jupiter ruled signs. Obviously, we have Saturn and Pisces in this video here, so this is the entire video about you, which is just doubling up on that isolated kind of energy. And then Saturn and Sag in the 12th. There is some interesting stuff here around like being taught spiritual things or mediumship things, or being taught things that are like beliefs that are damaging to your mental health. Like that's a really interesting one there, Saturn and Sag. Yeah, don't know what that means for like that specific person, but whatever. And knowing how to like work within those systems and within those worldviews and the law and the legality and the culture. There's some really interesting cultural kind of division that needs to happen with that one. Same with Saturn and Pisces. There's a sense of cultural division, but it's very energetically enhanced and beyond really, really different like environments. Environments are very affected by 12th house. Like the environments that you're in, the energy that you're collecting, you don't even realize is there. So it's all about being in pure energy spaces that I think are really important for Saturn and 12th in general, but Saturn and Pisces for sure. And then finally, we have Saturn in Saturn ruled signs, so in Capricorn or in Aquarius. These are both going to be quite powerful. So to go back one, I'm going to talk about Saturn and Sag, because this is your chart ruler. So you being a Capricorn rising, having Saturn in the 12th house is going to be really important for you. So you yourself are going to the 12th house. You become really, really spiritually powerful. Like I said, there is some different, like, interesting cultural kind of differences here. There's definitely some really interesting religious kind of indoctrinated kind of stuff that needs to be kind of divvied up and understood. There's some very interesting like battles with like monotheistic versus polytheistic kind of approaches to life. There's something within that for this specific individual, because they themselves, being Capricorn rising, are brought to the 12th, which is like dissolving themselves and their belief systems into something that is not necessarily clear. So it's making your own belief system based off of you very strongly, very strongly. And yes, it is going to have some incorporation with your culture, but it's about breaking that away and then also reintegrating that. It's really interesting. And then Saturn in Capricorn, this is the other Saturn ruled chart ruler going on the 12th. So it's Aquarius rising, Saturn in Capricorn on the 12th. So this is the same thing, except this is going to be a lot more about the long-term responsibility with unseen energies. This is like really doubling up on that sort of working in a community mental health, working in hospitals. There's another doubling up on that. When Saturn is in its own sign, it just kind of really, really highlights the working for structures and having a business in that way. And so Saturn in the 12th in Capricorn, because you're ruled by it, because you're in Aquarius rising, there can be a quality of you really wanting to bring community involvement into private spaces, into private sectors, into really even like advocacy for foreign people or people seeking asylum. There's a sense of that, like a sense of helping people through really difficult things, especially because Aquarius risings are so community driven. There could be a humanitarian pursuit that you're really trying to protect refugees or protect those that are unseen and not talked about. Mental health, like advocacy, or drug advocacy, pharmaceutical advocacy. There's a lot there. So there's that one. And then Saturn Aquarius in the 12th. This one is going to have a lot of friends that are really unclear. There's some really big importance to have boundaries with friends with this one. And energetics around your friends in that way. There's a lot there. And I meant to mention with Saturn and Pisces as well, there is a sense of pharmaceutical and healing, and just really learning healing in general. Like that's just a whole Saturn Pisces story. It's like learning how to heal. Saturn Virgo has it the same way, but in a different avenue. Saturn and Pisces learning to trust the higher power to heal, in addition to doing the work. And then Saturn and Virgo is very much just like doing the work over and over again, and thinking that you're the only one that can heal, right? It's very interesting in that way. But anywho, in the 12th house, Saturn in the 12th just ultimately leads to a sense of spiritual isolation, energetic isolation, that ultimately leads to healing for you. That's really what it does. There's so much health that is incorporated into our systems, and the 12th house is everything we don't see. This is where healing comes in, that is sleep related as well. There's definitely a sleep decision or sleep difficulty with Saturn in the 12th as well. Difficulty sleeping, difficulty connecting to dreams or dreamscapes, or feeling like you can feel rested. Because the 12th house is a very it's where we release ourselves, right? And Saturn then doesn't allow us to release ourselves. It kind of restricts. It's almost like we go, we're like, if we think about astral projection or we think about our dreams, it's almost like there's a sense of freedom involved with that. And Saturn there really restricts and puts like a weight on us so that we can't quite have the freedom. And we're kind of chained to our body a little bit more. We're chained to that kind of energetic system a little bit more deeply than the average person. So it's a really interesting one in general. Saturn in the 12th is such a complex, 12th house is just such a complex place in the chart. but Saturn also makes us a lot more grounded in reality. It forces that groundedness. It forces that long-term stability, that long-term goal, relative to clearing out your energy, right? Doing that sort of energetic detox, that spiritual detox, that emotional detox to help you get to a point that you can be an authority about boundaries and energetics and really know how to navigate smoothly through energetic kind of environments and things that don't really feel like they're that clear or that, that solid, and knowing where you stand. It's really, really powerful. And so, yeah, that's really all I really have to say. I feel like there's way much more I could say, but if you guys want more of that, obviously you know where to find me. All my stuff's down below. This is such a bittersweet video to be doing, because this is the last video of the entire series, and so the series is now finished. The playlist is down below. You're welcome to check out anything now, because I've done every single one of them. And if you're interested in anything with me, obviously you know where to find me, like I said. But thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for anyone that may have watched any of these videos in this series, because this has been such a big project for me. 84 videos, ranging from 20-30 minutes to an hour and some change. I love this. I love being able to provide this for people, and I really, really hope that you got something out of the series. Even if it's just this video that you're watching, I hope you got something out of the series. I know I did, and I'm so grateful to be able to have done this and have the privilege to do this and be able to provide astrological insights and knowledge and do this throughout my love and my just desire to help people with this and just translate astrology to people. That's really what I do. At the end of the day, it's just a giant translation job, and I hope that I helped as many people as I can with this. This is meant to be a foundational sort of series on my YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more, obviously, because now that this project is done, I have my eyes on the next project as my Capricorn rising self. And so there will be more coming out. Obviously, there's much more on my Instagram and on my website and everything that is still in the process. I have a lot more things going on there, a lot more classes that I'm going to keep working on. There's a lot more projects I'm going to be jumping right into. And yeah, I think there's just so much here, and I really hope this series was able to help any of you. Once again, I love this. I really love what I do. And if you guys are interested in anything with me, obviously booking with me, there's stuff down below for that. And I'd love to hear your stories in any of the videos in the playlist, not just this one, of course. But yeah, and I just hope that you guys loved watching this series as much as I loved creating it. And the journey it was for me. So I'm probably gonna do like a longer video on my YouTube, on my Instagram pertaining to this. Just thanking everybody because it's such a fun series. So, yeah. So I appreciate you all, every single one of you that has ever watched any of these videos in this series. I'm just grateful, and I hope that this helped any of you, all of you. Once again, I've said that so many times because that was my intention with this whole series. So, yeah. So I love you. I appreciate you, and you guys will see more from me, I'm sure. I'm gonna keep uploading stuff. Yeah, and if you guys have any ideas of what you want to hear from me, if you guys want to learn more about certain things, if you guys like my teaching style, you want to learn different things from me, let me know. Comment down below or comment on any of the videos. Yeah, I love you guys. I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.